So after reviewing about, 50, 60 ladies that have gone through coaching and all had the same successful outcome, I kind of looked at the characteristics, the traits that were common amongst everybody and how they ended up kind of getting results, getting stuck in learning and ultimately healing their trauma. And I kind of distilled it down at this stage to kind of 10 things that I see that are consistent across all of these ladies. And I think the first is that they have a need. They're struggling with trauma, emotions, triggers, turmoil, overwhelm, constantly anxious. There's daily life is being really negatively affected, and that creates this need for change. And then I see that, really the next bit is that they're open-minded enough that they taking a look around at what's going on. They've maybe tried many things, many therapies, and nothing's worked, but they're still seeking that solution. They still believe there's an answer out there, and I think that a lot of the time will come down to maybe things getting as bad as they can. Like often you see a drive for another bit of change or another bit of education or trying something again or trying something new often comes from being as bad as it can get. Like anything's better than this. I'd rather try something new or try something different rather than stay where I am. And so that tends to be like quite a big driver. One of the other things I noticed, and this was particularly true of ladies like Elisa, Kirsty, Amanda, and Tracy, is that there's also like a fear, like they're worried. They're concerned, scared, about learning something, scared about trying something else, scared will it work for them. But they take the steps anyway, and I think those steps tend to look like they'll start to watch some videos, they maybe attend a live Zoom or watch a replay, they'll read emails, they'll look at reviews, they'll have a good mooch about, read other stuff that I've written or watch other videos I've created over time, and slowly but surely they're building a bit of a rapport with it. And so that's just kind of settling them into, I think like this could be worth a go for me. And then they'll take that step forward, and that will be emailing me. There'll be an email conversation that will start to come into play. Sometimes it's booking a call and having a conversation where we talk about the program and everything that there is to go with it. And then even though they're scared, they decide that they're going to do it. And I've noticed that commitment, that follow through on commitment, it kind of tends to come in quick succession. Like there'll be a build up to get to the point where they're on a call or they're emailing, and then when it's time to okay, what is it? And I say everything that it is. They're then, okay, let's do it. And that let's do it is kind of the breakthrough moment, because they let's do it, I send a link and then they join, and those things tend to happen in pretty quick succession. And I've seen that consistently across most people. I would say that the build up to that point is where the time's taken, but once they've decided, yeah, I'm doing it, they do it, join, and then they get going like really, really quickly. And so once they come into something, it's then that willingness to learn. It's plugging into the process. It's attending, some live sessions. It's watching the videos. It's reading the book. It's learning the stuff. And then more importantly, it's putting it into action. Like knowing is not enough. We must do. And they kind of follow that. So they're learning, asking questions. Something doesn't make sense. What does this mean? They're getting replies. It's settling that down. Then they're going in and they're practicing. They make time. In terms of the debox method, they make time for their deboxing. They diary it in, they set the time. It's like a gym appointment or a class. It now becomes that appointment with themselves that they don't miss, and they are consistent with that, and that ultimately leads to knowledge growth and obviously getting results. And you can get a tangible result. Like Elisa, I think she got a tangible result in her first 24 hours because she got stuck in and she put the movie technique to work and got a tangible outcome like really, really quickly. One of the other things I notice, and there's people where they've maybe had a lot of therapy, they've been through a lot of things, maybe got a lot of knowledge in a lot of other disciplines, but are still struggling. They don't spend all their time telling me everything that they already know. And it's kind of one of the things I see when somebody's just telling me everything that they already know and understand. Sometimes that can be a block to actually letting go. And I think a Chinese philosophy is that you got to empty your cup if you want to fill it with something else. And I'd liken it, again, a martial art. Say you're coming into something like this, and I'm Kung Fu and you know Judo. You've been studying Judo. You're, really proficient in understanding all the mechanics of that. I'm teaching you Kung Fu, and all you keep telling me is about the Judo that you've done, and that's similar to this, that's similar to that. So they, even though some ladies have come in and they've got a lot of knowledge, they weren't constantly telling me everything they knew. They laid down all their preconceived ideas, all their weapons, like, right, I'm just going to follow what he's done. And I think their view, after speaking to a couple of them, was, well, he's got what I want, and the other people, the reviews I've seen, they've got what I want, which is to have a skill for the rest of my life where I can clear anything, and my trauma's done. So if he's got what I want, then I'm just going to follow what he says and see how that plays out. And I think, again, credit to them for just laying down any preconceived ideas and just, right, let me empty my cup, let's learn everything I need to from here. And I think the engaging fully is the next thing. Like, it's not only is it engaging fully, but there's support of anyone else and sharing like that. It's not even necessarily that you have to be doing that straight away. It's the willingness to want to get to that point, and that by sharing in the group, by posting your updates, by sharing your experiences, you're starting to break the battle of that vulnerability, and actually being willing to share that more, and not feeling embarrassed about how you're feeling, because the other people around you are incredibly supportive as well. And so that kind of engaging, sharing, supporting, and asking questions, if something doesn't make sense, that there's a question that will go in, and that again is a major trait in developing the skills and the philosophy that you need in order to embrace something new and get the most out of it. The eighth thing, probably the most important thing in the end to me, is they take personal responsibility. So they take responsibility for their reactions, for their triggers, for their emotions. They take responsibility for putting the work in, for their learning, and they take responsibility for asking for questions or asking for help when they need it. And I think so often I've seen people, they'll sit back and they won't ask any questions or won't ask for any help, and ultimately then they can end up feeling let down and all of these other things that go in. And now suddenly there's kind of this thing where now it gives the ability to blame someone else or something else, instead of just starting to take that ownership, because ultimately debox, the big premise of that is self-reliance, emotional self-reliance, and that begins with taking personal responsibility for your journey and being the lead actor in your own play, so to speak. The ninth thing, they never quit, and they certainly never make a decision when they're feeling overly emotional. So they will carry on learning, keep going. They know there's going to be peaks and valleys, and even though they might have this overwhelming feeling like, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore, they do nothing. They just sit, they ride it out, maybe a day or so, the emotions have calmed, and then they're reaching out, asking questions, or they're in a hugely emotional state and they're reaching out, right, what do I do here? Like, they're actively looking for, how do I move this emotion through me? How do I get this out of my system? How do I use this technique in such a way that at the times when I'm feeling this heightened emotion, it becomes the biggest opportunity, because heightened emotions is actually your single biggest opportunity to get something out of your system, because it's up here ready to go. It's just a matter of the right trigger, the right protocols to release that and get that out into the ether and out of your system. So they recognize that, and instead of emotions becoming something that makes them want to stop and give up, the emotions become the opportunity to use that difficulty, as Michael Caine says, and actually use it as an opportunity to release and debox and heal further. And the 10th thing, again, I know this will vary from person to person, but it's been pretty consistent. If you're in massive debt, you've got massive money worries, and like even just, week to week, being able to afford food or bills or anything, and there's all kinds of pressure on you, that kind of financial difficulty is from my experience, is too difficult to do any emotional healing from. You've kind of got to get that stuff into order first, and whether that's through a charity, always make sure it's a charity, like, you know, a debt charity, so you can get everything in order, everything structured properly, but just starting to take care of it, get that under management. I definitely see that where people are financially, they're pretty steady, they've got some disposable income, which would then, or they've got some savings that would then go towards, you know, things that they want to do for themselves. I see those people as just ahead, where they can focus more on the emotional healing than they are worrying about the finances, because they've overreached to learn something, and now it's creating even more pressure. Because if the healing process or the healing program is creating more worry, that's so difficult to manage. Certainly in the early days of learning something, you need that slightly clearer head. And so if you kind of think about it, like they have a need to heal, they're open-minded and curious enough, they investigate, watch videos, and go through things to kind of get more of a gist and get more familiar and more comfort. Even though they're scared, they take those baby steps, and then ultimately the big step, and when they decide they're going to commit, they commit and get going, like, really quickly. They want to learn, and they're ready to apply it. They don't keep telling me what they already know. They lay down their weapons and just come to learn what we've discovered here. They engage fully and ask questions and support others and share, and they begin that process, whether they can do that from the beginning or it comes later, but they develop it. They take personal responsibility. My actions are mine, my reactions are mine, my triggers are mine. If I need help, that's on me to give a shout. Nobody's going to be able to second guess. That's the beginning of that philosophy. I'm going to take responsibility to work towards that. They never quit, and they use emotion to heal rather than use emotion to run. And their finances are definitely in order enough that they can focus on a healing journey without worrying about, you know, where the next bit of money is coming from to pay for life's essentials. So take those 10 things, put them into place, and if you've got those kind of traits, or you're working on developing them, once you get to those, you'll start to find a way to heal. And it's the same for all of them that have gone before you. So hope this video has been useful. Like and subscribe, and speak soon.